right. Let's see. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
And a motion by Councilmember Pershman.
I'll second.
A second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right. Community comment. Presenters are welcome to address the City Council for up to 5 minutes on matters that are not listed on tonight's meeting agenda. Specific requests for information may not be immediately available, in which case we will follow up with the presenters sometime after the meeting. The City Council should not be expected to immediately act on requests. However, they will follow up accordingly and may schedule items for future consideration. Is anyone here for community comment? Okay. I'm going to go just a little bit out of order and do employee recognition first. We have a couple of service anniversaries to recognize tonight. The first is Natalie Meyer. They're both 5-year service anniversaries, which saw Natalie, and I can't believe that it's been 5 years. I'm not sure where the time went. Natalie started on as an administrative assistant part-time, and then when the opportunity arose, she worked full-time, and she's probably more than likely the voice you hear at the other end of the phone when you call the city of Carver, and helping to answer questions and solve problems, and just a really great member of our team. So thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Congratulations on 5 years. All right. Should we do a picture?
Yeah.
Get your appearance?
Yeah. Okay, we'll do, why don't you do, and then you're
You're kind of front row material, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, our next second of 2 service anniversaries that we're celebrating tonight is Chad Shells. Chad started here 5 years ago, working in our public services department, is now our public services director. So Chad is likely the one that if you have questions about water or snow plowing, that your question is going to get routed through. And I think more often than not, Chad answers those questions or he directs it to somebody who can. So thank you, Chad. We really appreciate all your hard work. Wait, are we going to do one with the group hug?
I'll stand.
Thank you.
Let's go to
Oh, no.
Congratulations, Jess. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye. All right. Oh, no, that's fine. Okay, back to the regularly scheduled agenda. Up next, we have 5.1, the Carver County Attorney's Office, with Carver County Attorney Mark Metz. Welcome. Last time you were here, you told us a fun story about prosecuting because you were filling in. So not that that's where the bar is set, but we want a fun story tonight.
Well, remind me, maybe I'll have, I don't know if it's fun, but it's it's interesting. So,
Okay.
My name's Mark Metz. I'm the county attorney, and thank you, Madam Mayor and council members and other employees of Carver. So thanks for having me. This is my opportunity to come every year and present on our prosecution contracts and just highlight some things that we're doing. And I know I've talked a lot about our treatment courts, but I want to update the council on that too, and maybe talk a little bit more about what we're doing. So let's see, maybe you can, yeah, if you could, next slide then, please, thank you. So our prosecution contract is with 10 of 11 cities. So we serve all the cities to prosecute felonies, all the serious crime. I mean, crime is all serious, but we're talking about more serious felonies that Minnesota statutes require county attorney's offices to prosecute. But we can contract with the cities for misdemeanors, speeding, DUIs, and we do that with all the cities except Chanhassen. So next slide, please. Our contract fees are determined based upon our costs in our office, and then we take the fine revenue, we reduce that. This county cost allocation is the support that our county board provides us because they see a great value in having our office prosecute these cases, provide the high level of services that we do. So they have this cost allocation. And then we have a surcharge, which essentially is includes this cost of the county's personnel costs. So we started doing this within the last 5 years to keep up with the cost of living, essentially. And so we take what is standard across the board through the county. We look back a year, and so it can range from 3% to 6.5%. So next slide, please. So this is just a breakdown, and we take a 3-year average for the cities to come up with a percentage of cases that our office handles, and then obviously that's divided up. So if you look at Chaska, 42% of the cases on average we're handling, so of course they're going to pay a higher charge to us. And Carver has almost 7.5% of the cases. You can see in 2020 we did 52 cases, then 77 in 2021, and 55 in 2022. And again, these can range from speeding cases to gross misdemeanor DUIs that might take longer. Some cases might go to trial. Some, most cases are going to settle, and people plead guilty to them. So the average is 61. Comparably, Watertown, their average is 73. And then you look at, as I mentioned, some of the larger cities. Next slide.
Can I ask a really quick question? So I noticed, Chanhassen's not on here. So what do they do for their prosecuting services?
They contract with a private law firm. So there's a few law firms that throughout the Twin Cities that in addition to their normal business, so they'll have clients, they will have a certain division that they'll pay. And so like a city of Chanhassen will, and I don't know what their rates are and what they charge, but they've just been contracting with the private law firm to do that. And as I've mentioned in the past, we provide a high level of service because we're in-house. We're right there at the courthouse. We have 2 full-time victim services people, which is a priority for our victims. We make sure that we always have attention to these cases, and we really do think it's a good model.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So we look at the rate, and this year, if you look at the 3-year average, the contract average 2024 going forward, and then the contract rate was $7,318.93 in 2023. So it went down because you had fewer cases on average to $6,039.29. So that's a reduction of almost $1,300. You look in other cities, some of it goes up. The biggest being Victoria, because we did more cases on the average, so theirs is going to increase. But it's always good to come to the cities and say it's lower, but it just depends upon the cases that we're handling, the number of those cases. Next slide, please. All right, so before I go into what we're doing in our office and highlight a few things, are there any questions about the contract? I know I've been doing this with you for many years, and I don't want to spend too much time and respect your time and others' time. Okay, so our treatment courts, we're really proud of that, and what they are basically, it's an innovative response, recognizing that not all justice-involved persons are best served through our traditional court system. So we have it's called the Carver Dakota Veterans Treatment Court, and then we have a drug court, a substance abuse court as well that we started. And we've had the Veterans Court since 2014, and we joined recently with Dakota County. And the main reason is we wanted to share resources, and we needed to get our numbers up, because in order to qualify for state aid, we had to have a certain amount of individuals that are in our courts, and we didn't have enough after a while, which is kind of counterintuitive if you think about that. So I reached out to our counterpart, and they've been a good partner, and so we do share resources, but we're still separate, but we call it the Carver Dakota Veterans Treatment Court. And right now, we're also having discussions with Scott County, so they reached out to us as well to see if maybe we can join and have more of a district-wide type of court, and I'm open for that, but it's important. We've been doing this since 2014, and others have different ways of doing things, so we're meeting again on the 10th with some judges and their administration, their county attorney, to see how this would work best. But it's always better to look at other alternatives to share resources, and just because you live in a different county it doesn't seem fair that you don't get the same services and they don't have these types of treatment courts. So hopefully we can get a whole first district with all of the counties.
With that partnership, are the court dates in the respective counties, or
Yeah.
does everybody come here?
So we haven't worked out all that dynamic. But with Dakota, is most of them are on Zoom too, but yeah, they'll come to Carver County, and we have one main judge. Judge Kane serves the Veterans Court, and then Judge Wenzel serves our substance abuse court. So, and it's intense, and I'll mention that as well, because what it does is it takes a minimum of 12 months to complete. And it's easier to go through the traditional court system, but you're probably not going to come out in the same manner, at least in this type of court. And so it requires active participation. You have to adhere and a commitment on these participants. And they can avoid a criminal record, for example, or some incarceration or a reduced sentence as an incentive for completing the program. So every second and fourth Monday of each month at 1:30, they meet. So they come back, they're talking about their progress. I see a positive test here. What happened? I'm going to sentence you. And the judge, not me, but the judge could say, I'm going to sentence you to a weekend in jail because you have to have consequence of this. Or what happened here? And I see that you missed some appointments here. We got to get you connected with the mentor. Or I don't have transportation. So what do I do? All right, here's who we're going to connect you with. So that's, very intense. And so the eligibility is based upon service in the U.S. Armed Forces, and you have to be charged with a misdemeanor or greater criminal offense, or you reside in Carver County, Dakota County, or a defined service area. So we do consider taking, if somebody in LeSueur County had it, we might consider that as well. We've included probation violations now in Carver County. And so to meet the eligibility, you have to have a mental health disorder, a moderate or severe substance abuse use disorder, or a co-occurring substance use and mental health disorder, consistent with the DSM diagnostic criteria. So it's best practices, and it's an adherence program as well. So the goals are enhance public safety, we reduce our cost to society, we facilitate sobriety and long-term recovery, improve their functioning, compliance, and VA benefits and services, and then really it improves family relationships and social support connections. We have about 22 participants. I say about because, my PowerPoint, when I look at this, we're talking about the summer, so it can fluctuate, but that gives you an idea. 22 participants, 71 participants since the program began, and as of April 24th of 2023, we've had 40 participants who've graduated. So it's a voluntary program, and it's been very beneficial. So now shifting toward substance abuse court or drug treatment court, again, this is a voluntary program that serves high-risk, high-need individuals with a history of substance abuse problems. I'm pretty strict about who should be in this program. I'm not looking for drug kingpins and serious, dangerous offenders. That's not what this program is for. But the program, interestingly enough, with best practice, is for high-risk people. It's not for lower-risk people. And that took me a change to understand that and appreciate that they're high needs and they're high risk. But again, it's not drug kingpins that we have in this program, but they're significant crimes. But again, this goal, similar as public safety, reduce the costs, and rehabilitate and improve the life of the participant. If you think about, if we improve these individuals, they're not going to reoffend. So it reduces recidivism. Otherwise, it's just this revolving door of, oh, they picked up another drug charge. Now they're in through the traditional court system. And this is no judgment on the traditional court system. It's reduced. I mean, they don't have as many resources in that traditional system. And this is a lot of people that are taking on a lot more, and they care about these individuals. And so we have, again, criteria, very strict criteria, who qualifies. And we initially received a very large grant to start this program, if you remember. I think it was $500,000, which was great. And then we applied 2 years ago, and in September of 2022, surprisingly, we received an additional enhancement funding of $750,000. We didn't think we were going to get this because we were told it was really competitive. They were going to give fewer grants out. But, we invested our time, and if you've ever written grants and been involved, and you have, it's a significant amount of work, and if you're going to do it right, you put everything that you have into it. So we were ecstatic, of course, and it was an enhancement, so we had to take probation violations, and how are we going to make our court better? So we did some other things that were required about having a peer recovery specialist who assists them through their journey in recovery. So that's an example that we'll hire somebody. We have currently about 10 participants in drug court, and as of May of 2023, 12 participants had graduated. So that's impressive. And I wanted to give you a couple quotes here that I think are impactful that some of our members agreed to share with us so we could share with you. And one of them said, "We admitted we were powerless over drugs and alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. Such a simple concept, yet millions of people worldwide struggle with this very idea every single day. I am no exception. For some reason, addicts like to do everything the hard way. Again, I am no exception to this either. My family wanted nothing to do with me. I'd become a stranger to them. My life was spiraling. Yet the participants were in drug court as a jail alternative, and it's not a punishment. It's an amazing opportunity to learn a new way of living." And so they went through about how this affected their life. And this person said that, "Today I have 1,228 days of sobriety, almost 3.5 years. I wake up every day happy to be alive. I have a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old in my entire world. I never thought I would proudly say I'm a great mom, but I am a great mom. I have so much gratitude towards the drug court program for helping me achieve this." And then another person said, "My life before drug court was extremely hectic. I was homeless, in and out of jail. I was committing crimes, never in contact with my family. I was a horrible father and boyfriend. Now that I'm clean, going on 3 years, I have my own apartment, I have a well-paid job and great relations with my family and kids, emotionally and physically there to support them, and greater than all, happy and present. I love life without Carver County Drug Court. I don't think any of this would have been possible." So this really makes it worthwhile because we don't see this impact as much in the criminal justice system, and prosecutors and people that are in the system, not just us, but of course, social workers and other probate, they get in it because they care about people. You're in this because you care about your community and your citizens, and this is one way where you feel really good because you know that you've really improved their lives. And when people go to prison and we prosecute people that have serious consequences, we don't feel good about that, but we know we're protecting public safety, and they're going to have those consequences, hopefully get treatment in prison. But here we know this extensive program, when you hear that, you say, okay, this really made an impact, because now you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars over all these people that just keep coming through the system. So, yeah, it's been a really good program, and a lot of counties have it. And we're fortunate because we have a pretty visionary group of people and board of commissioners and others that support this. And, everybody's not going to embrace it right away because it's a different way of looking at this, and it's not a get out of jail free card. It's a really hard program, and they're not all successes. We have some people that they get kicked off the program and they go back through the traditional system, but it's really a different way of looking at things that we do. So I really appreciate people that can, see what we're trying to do that's different than this traditional system as well. All right, so my last interesting story is that, and I could talk about this, and I have to be careful because it's still an ongoing case, but it was a jury trial, and we had an individual who escaped from our custody, and I had prosecuted him, and I mentioned that I went to court, and I had 2 jury trials with him in March, and he had threatened to kill 2 of our jailers. And he was in prison in Oak Park Heights in segregation there 23 hours a day. And so when he was in our jail, he basically said, I'm going to, effing find you and I'm going to kill you. And they were really serious and scary for these jailers. So took that to trial. And in March, he was found guilty by 2 separate juries. And he was sentenced on that. And this individual also stalked our head of our criminal division and showed up at her house in Waconia, which we believe he had a gun. And that was a year before this. And so since the victim works in our office, Washington County agreed to handle that case for us, and I had a relationship with them and said, would you be willing to do this? So the defendant had a jury trial in that case as well, and he was found guilty. So he ended up getting about 13 years in prison on these. So we still have 4 more pending cases with him. But during the pendency of this case, I was in court for a hearing, and when you're in prison, you have your shackles on your waist and on your ankles and everything. So
I'll take your word for it.
yes, and it's a little bit different. If they're in our jail, sometimes they won't have the belt and shackle there, but they'll have handcuffs on and maybe not on their feet. But this person had them both on their feet. And when we finished the hearing, went back upstairs to the office, and then they put him in a holding cell, and they took his handcuffs off of him, and he pushed the bailiff inside of the holding cell, and he was able to escape and run out in the courthouse. And we were having a snowstorm that day last year, and there was about 6 inches of snow on the ground. He ran out into the back employee parking lot, and one of our employees was clearing off her snow, and he jumped in her car to steal her car, and she had the wits about her to grab her keys. And at this time, the bailiff saw this on the video screen and ran down the hallway and came out and was going to try to taser this individual and attempted to taser him, but he fought. The officer punched him, and he got out, and he started running through the parking lot, in his orange pants and his, criminal garb. And so one of the jailers recognized him because he'd been in our jail and said, oh, I guess I got to tackle this guy because he was clearing off his snow. So he tackled him, and they were able to, subdue him. And so he had a jury trial 2 weeks ago of this case, and he was found guilty, and he hasn't been yet sentenced on that. So that's obviously a pretty intense moment of, individuals and stuff. So we've tried a fair amount of cases this year, and this is the 4th jury trial. Like I said, we have 4 more to go with this individual, and the future ones are just their allegations, and he's presumed innocent of those until a jury says he's not and a judge convicts him. So, make a lot of public statements about cases that are ongoing because I want to respect that they're entitled to a fair trial and not have me talking about, or giving my opinion about this, and make sure we honor that. But that's over with as well. So, it takes a lot. And so we had a lot of security, making sure that people were safe. And, he certainly made some threats to me as well and doesn't really like me, but, but it also shows that, and what our prosecutors are doing, like the head of our criminal division, that's not an easy thing when you have that going on and in their lives and making sure that we're all safe and secure. And we were at our conference this past week. We have an annual retreat, and one of the Cook County attorney spoke and presented on an incident that happened 10 years ago where a defendant was found guilty in Cook County's Grand Marais, right? So small courthouse. He was found guilty and of a sex offense, and he was released until sentencing. He went out to his car, and he got a gun. He came inside the courthouse, went up into the county attorney's office, and shot the county attorney 3 times, and once near the heart. And then the victim's father was up there, chased him down, shot him twice, and then the county attorney went into the now county attorney's office, went into her office. They didn't have a locked door. So he came back in there with the gun and they fought him and they were able to get the gun away, throw it out. And then the bailiff came up and he had a Glock, so it could do a lot more damage. But unfortunately, the defendant, the suspect, had gotten the gun away from the bailiff and shot 2 or 3 times right by their face, and Molly Hickens, the county attorney, by her face, and they just fought for their life. And she said she did everything she possibly could to fight with him and get the gun and talk to him and struggle. It was really impactful, and she was emotional and crying when she was telling the story. I thought took a lot of courage for her to share this, and she was talking about the trauma that goes with this and how you deal with it, and also security. So then she was able to get that gun away and went outside and through the window, threw it down, and then they were able to actually handcuff him. And the county attorney survived, had emergency surgery, and then unfortunately, well, during this struggle and fight for their lives, she said she administered like 2 cans of pepper spray in this suspect's mouth. And he was in the Duluth jail, and he died 10 days later of respiratory failure. So I don't know if it was from that or whatever, but he died, so they didn't have a trial. But within that same year, that county attorney who was shot, he was charged with a sex offense for engaging with an underage person. And then he remained in office for like 2 years. So she was explaining this whole version. And I knew what had happened, not the details. But then to make it relevant to what we do, she talked about how individuals that deal with this should really seek out help, and how she sought out counseling and then sought out help for herself as well with very number of other areas that she was struggling with. And like I said, it took a lot of courage for her to talk about that. And then I remember that this kind of led to certainly me going to the board and encouraging them when we needed screening at our courthouse, because back then we didn't even have weapons screening. So anybody could just walk in and walk up, and which was, but people go, well, it's never happened before, so it's not going to happen now. It doesn't happen in Cook County, they had one bailiff, but it's probably more information that you wanted to know. So I apologize for that, but you get an attorney talk and you ask about an
Sorry,
story.
that was my fault.
I hope I didn't go on too far, but I mean, it's something that, we do, and we have to evaluate and assess even in circumstances that, make sure that people are safe and our people are safe, and we're always looking at that in our office, in our boardroom, and other areas. So, but
Absolutely.
I wish I could come with better. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Last
but I
year's
wish I
story
could,
was about some drug charges and a kid outing his dad or something like that. It was a little funnier.
Yeah, a little fun. I know. So, all right, but I appreciate you having me and talk about the prosecution contracts as well, and for your support, and I do genuinely mean that from our work, our people that work. I mean, they're the ones that really, I say this all the time, but they really are. They're just like, your employees are only as good as the people that you have working with you, and so I appreciate that.
Outstanding. Any questions for the county attorney?
Well,
I have
thank
one.
you for sharing success about the drug court.
Yeah.
It sounds like a novel way to approach those kind of crimes and reduce recidivism.
I know. Me neither. I know. It's always.
That's because we don't have to, Eric.
Yeah. It really has proven to be effective, and but it's a big endeavor, when you first start it. But it helps when you get 500,000 now, 3/4, because eventually the county board's going to have to come up with money to support. Then they're willing to, and they're supportive of that. And I don't see us coming to you saying, "Hey, we need $50,000 for me to say no." But so yeah, thank you.
I have one question for you. So if I heard you right with the numbers, I mean, it's high 50% of people that are graduating the drug court program.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And this is, does this happen nationwide? And do you have any stats for like the country, how this is working?
Yeah, I don't have the
besides Minnesota?
stats for what are the average. I think it's higher. I could say that it's higher for veterans court. It's a different group of people that you're dealing with. But I would say we're probably, the average, because we went with best practices. We had to do an intense 1 week of training to get this funding. And so, here's the best practices that you utilize to have successes. But they go through, the traditional system if they don't succeed. But they don't go, get kicked out of the program if they test positive, because most of them are going to have positive tests. That's part of recovery, but they have consequences. They're not, they don't come in and they meet with the whole group and talk about, well, what do you think is best for this person? Should it be, they deserve consequences, or no, I think we should work with them on this, and they're struggling now because somebody in their family died and they need more counseling in this area. But,
Are we the only 2 counties in Minnesota who do this?
no, there's, most counties probably do. And I think that's the goal of having every single county, because you should have equal justice across the state. And like I mentioned, if we had somebody that was in McLeod County, they don't have one, and they're thinking about joining, I'd like to have them join us as well. But, we would take their participants if they're willing to join us for like a veterans court. But that makes good sense too, to have, if you can have a whole district that has it and, share. But I don't know how many have it, but they're, the larger counties have been doing it. Hennepin County's been doing this for a while, and, they certainly have. And there's other types of alternative courts for DUIs. I mean, we don't have that, but, some have a DUI type court. We have our own diversion programs and juvenile diversion programs, which are alternatives, but this is very novel. And when you're coming in twice a month, that's different than, okay, we're not checking up on you. You're on probation, and then your agent come, hey, how you doing? And we need you to test and things like that. And so here it's really, well, we're going to test you and hold you accountable. And it's the first time they've probably been sober in decades, for a lot of these people. And it takes a lot. I think I mentioned this before. It takes a lot to go to prison for drug cases too. I think I like to get that out there, that you have to have multiple violations and really have serious offenses. The judges they don't send people to prison for just committing drug offenses unless it's really significant. And that's probably right, give people an opportunity, but you kind of earned it by the time so I think that's a misnomer that sometimes out there, that, and these people, they're in for, marijuana and stuff. And no, I mean, marijuana has been decriminalized for many, many years anyway before it became legal. But that'll be the next time, because I have to respect your time. But yeah, the cannabis you could talk about.
Oh, we have to stop there recording.
Yes, we have to stop.
I just have one question. Beyond graduation, are you keeping track of if these folks for Veterans Court and for drug court, if there's any, Eric's word, recidivism?
Yeah.
Because I would imagine you can tell if they're kind of back in
Yeah.
the system. Are you keeping long-term metrics on?
Yeah, that's
folks?
part of that's definitely a goal of ours, is to, because we'll know when they come
Right.
in, and if they're not in our county, let's say they get another offense, then we have to be more proactive and check things. If they're in Hennepin, we're not, but we'll know right away, because we'll see them on our calendar, on our docket as well. But that's a good point of, okay, 2 years later, 3 years later,
Yep.
where are they? And do they come back in? Do they get back into your drug treatment court if they were successful? Because, that hurts when you see people that succeed and they're sober for a couple years. And they had one defendant who was really successful for 2 years and got out, and then just started spiraling, got in the wrong group. And next thing you know, she was back in our jail. And that really hurt, because, for 2 years she was doing so well, and gave her a deal not to go to prison. And so it was just, it's a real challenge. But we want to support it too. We want to support these people, because we have to try alternatives, right? What we're doing in our traditional system. So, well, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
Have a good night.
appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, 5.2, Southern Valley Alliance. We'll hear from Christy Larson, the Executive Director. Good evening. Good evening. Tell Christy before the meeting, I saw her on Care 11 this afternoon. So you might recognize her from TV.
Okay. Mark was on Dateline, so we've got celebrities here.
Lots of TV stars. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me here tonight. My name is Christy Larson, the Executive Director at Southern Valley Alliance. If you're not familiar with our organization, we provide all of the domestic abuse services for both Scott and Carver counties. We've been doing that for over 41 years for the 2 counties, and during that time have served over 24,000 individuals with abuse services. That number does include 451 individuals living here in Carver. And just a little disclaimer on that number, we have a 24/7 confidential crisis line, which is one of our largest programs. We don't necessarily have the demographic data from that, so we could be serving a lot more people from Carver, but because we don't ask where they're from on our confidential crisis line, we are unsure with those numbers. But we are just thrilled to be here tonight to talk about Southern Valley Alliance and some really exciting updates for our organization, as well as October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So thank you for having me here at the beginning of the month for that. So just a little background on Southern Valley Alliance. As I mentioned, one of our big programs is our 24/7 crisis line, free, confidential to anyone in the area that wants to give that a call. Sometimes victims are calling, they're in an immediate emergency situation, and we'll help them get out to safety and maybe do a safe emergency hotel stay or get to a shelter. Sometimes it's just a family or a friend that has a question about somebody in an abusive relationship and they need some resources or support. And sometimes other people are just calling, they need someone to listen and talk through their situation. And so we are here, our advocates are here for any of those calls, and we will provide whatever they need. We also hold support groups each week, so we do 2 each week, one in person and then one virtual option that are for survivors coming together with their peers and really just talking through their situations as they're on their path to safety and stability in their lives. I wanted to talk a little bit about our brand new transitional housing program. So we just started, we've never done a transitional housing program before. We are not a shelter, so there are no shelters in Scott or Carver counties. So we are also not a domestic violence shelter, but seeing the high need for housing, especially if victims are fleeing from a domestic situation, we embarked upon a transitional housing program. So we got a grant through the Office for Violence Against Women and started that this spring. So we have 6 scattered site apartment units throughout the 2 counties where our survivors can live for up to 12 months with their families. So we will provide the rent and utilities and all that support during that time, and they are receiving really intensive case management and all the support services so they can become stable and self-sufficient and kind of have all the tools they need to move on after that time. So we're really excited about that. We are seeing, we have a wait list for it already. It's full and we have a wait list, and we are applying for some additional grants because we see a high need for that program. We also do a lot of court advocacy, so working with the county attorney's office in both counties. We will go to court with our victims, usually for a harassment restraining order or an order for protection. So our advocates will be there for that support piece for the victim and just take them through the legal process, as a lot of times that's really confusing and scary, so being there for them. We also started to do some medical advocacy in the last year with St. Francis Hospital. So if somebody is coming into the emergency department presenting with domestic violence injuries, they can do a telehealth appointment with our advocates, and so we can be there through the exam and provide them the support that they need during that time, and then connect them for coming into our office to meet with one of our advocates after the fact. So a lot of really good, exciting growth things that are happening at Southern Valley Alliance, and also one of our biggest is that we are building a brand new facility in Shakopee. So we're located in Belle Plaine right now, have been for 41 years, and we are just thrilled to be building a brand new facility, our Domestic Abuse Advocacy Center, right downtown Shakopee across from the Government Center, where we will start to provide services at the very beginning of 2024. So it's just going to be a great facility for our clients. The accessibility is going to be great with public transportation, access to government services, as well as community partners. So we are really excited about that, and just encourage everyone to visit our website if you'd like more updates on that, about the building and progress. So that is all I have to say. But again, thank you for having me, especially in October for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And just open up if you have any questions for me at all. Any questions for Christy?
So you said there's a waiting list, which does not surprise me. How many units did you say you had?
We have 6 right now.
Across the 2 counties?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What happens to those folks who are on a waiting list? Where are they at during this time?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the situation. So sometimes they're at the home. Maybe the abuser is there or not there. Maybe they've been removed from the home. They have a current order for protection in place typically. Sometimes they might be in a shelter that's not in the counties, but we will connect them with another domestic violence shelter throughout the state. We have access to those open beds and things. And then maybe once we have a unit open, they can come back to the transitional housing program. Sometimes people are just staying with family or friends until something can open up. So it's really a case-by-case basis. But yeah, as you said, there's a high need for housing and for programs like that.
And outside of Hennepin County, which I assume has shelters, would be like the closest county nearby that would have a women's shelter?
Yeah, so the two that are the closest are CADA in Mankato,
Okay.
and then 360 Communities in Eagan. So those are the closest ones. So we partner with them, but
Not super close, but
not super close. It's not. It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
Are those furnished apartments?
they are, yes. Yep, so we furnish them with the client, and then upon exit, the client will take all the furnishings with them, so they have everything they need.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but thank you for creating the awareness for me.
Yeah.
When you said 451 residents of Carver have been supportive of your organization, that shocked me. But as you were talking through what you do, I'm really happy to know that there's an outlet. So thanks for the education.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
You guys doing the poinsettia sale, or are you going to be too busy moving this year?
Yeah, so poinsettia sale on hold this year, but next year it'll be back.
Outstanding. I was going to give you the opportunity
Yeah,
to
thank
give
you.
us a promo on that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
yep.
it. Okay. Moving on to public hearing, 6.1, the annual MS4 permit holding. So starting off, can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to open the publip hearing.
Motion by Councilmember Mock,
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, Mr. Schmidt.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. This is our opportunity. We do an annual stormwater meeting every year. This is in regard to the municipal separate storm sewer system permit, which we'll be calling the MS4 permit tonight. So the purpose of the annual meeting, like I said, we do this every single year. We do it in the fall, typically. Number one is to inform the public. Obviously, that stormwater has a big impact on, or treating stormwater and, what should I say, not treating it properly has a huge impact to our downstream waterways of the state and ultimately discharging to the United States. Receiving any input from the public, so we're having a public hearing tonight. This is the time for the public to talk about any concerns that they might have. Among other times of the year, this is a formal opportunity to do that. And then ultimately to provide just a general status update for some of the things that are going on with respect to the permits. So that's the purpose of the annual meeting. What's an MS4? Basically, in short, it's anything that's within the city stormwater system that collects stormwater, treats it, and discharges it into the waters of the United States. So the MPCA is designated under Minnesota Rules, Chapter 7090, that all cities and urbanized areas have to obtain an NPDES stormwater permit. City of Carver meets that criteria, so they've been an MS4 community since 2006, and we are implementing the best management practices that are outlined in the permit today. So a SWIP, that is a stormwater pollution prevention program, and that is a requirement of this overall MS4 permit. And basically what that is that describes how the city of Carver is going to reduce and eliminate pollution to the waterways. So that has a number of items in it. There's regulatory mechanisms, so our city code, educational programs, inspections, maintenance of our facilities, and how we document all those things. So commitments to the MPCA, they require 6 minimum control measures. Number one is public education and outreach. We do that a number of times through newsletters, city website, postings, etc. Public participation and involvement, obviously tonight is an example of that. Illicit discharge detection and elimination. Construction site stormwater runoff control. So that's designing the stormwater BMPs with construction. And then post-construction stormwater management and pollution prevention. So those are kind of the key 6 areas that are outlined in the SWIP. So program highlights for 2022. So we do the annual meeting, and it kind of focuses on what we did in the past year, so that's why we say 2022. We were not required to submit an annual report by June 30th of this year. The MPCA is kind of revamping their online reporting system, so we anticipate that last year's report will be submitted next year, so we'll be submitting 2022 and 2023's report next summer. Chad and his team have inspected 20% of all of our ponds and outfalls in the city in this past year. We also completed inspections on all the structural BMPs, which is most normally there's sump structures where there isn't ponds for treatment. We'll collect sediment in the bottom of catch basin sumps before it's discharged into creeks and so forth. And then just in general, we do inspection on all the development projects that are happening throughout the city for the course of the year. So that's kind of the highlights in this past year. So things we're thinking about for next year, like I mentioned, submitting the annual reports by June 30th next year, continuing to focus on tree removal and brush removal around our ponds, so there's easy maintenance access. So Public Service has started to do that. I think that's a program they're going to keep up with going forward. Another one that we're talking about getting up and running is a pond assessment program. So there's a lot of ponds in the city that are getting to be 20 plus years old, so they might be getting full of sediment. So kind of starting to review those and see if they need to be cleaned out going forward, so we can implement a program in the long-term plan as needed for that. And then just continuing inspection and implementing the SWIP per the MS4 requirements. So that's our plans going forward for 24. And just future, always looking to improve on efficiency. Last year we implemented a kind of a dynamic GIS tool where all the documentation can be done on an iPad, so that's been pretty helpful. And then just continued training for staff involved with the SWIP. So that is kind of the annual report in a nutshell. So be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right. Let's see, before we get to council questions, why don't we open it up to any public comments? If there aren't any public comments after all the public comments are received, if there are any, the public hearing will be closed, and no further comments on this issue will be received at this hearing. Any public comments? Good evening, Reed.
Hello. My name is Reed Welch. I live at 1813 Red Oak Ridge. Just for the people watching, I'm sure there's lots. I'm on the Planning Commission, so I have seen this report before, so I do have a couple of questions. I know, Aaron, a part of our questions were when we cleaned up the language in the statute to remove some duplication. Were we able to figure out, one of my concerns, again, it was, like a quick guide for the homeowners, right? This applies to public and private, right? So just like, where's a quick guide to make sure you don't put your grass in the, curbs and that kind of stuff? Were we able to find a, I don't know, put it on the website or something? I know we don't want to put a link in the county, in the city statutes, right? But just some sort of, if that, and then, I think that was all my questions on the public, just to make sure. That's it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I clarify
Sorry,
just
Aaron.
one thing?
Yes,
So
please.
the planning commission reviewed the material that Aaron went over at the work session. So it's the ordinance change
Oh,
that the
yes,
planning
sorry.
commission reviewed. No, it's okay. So we're working on 2 different MS4 projects right now.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking for additional information about the ordinance revision, it was at the work session
Work session.
tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, for the public, sure.
Yeah. different MS4, same.
Gotcha. All right, cool. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? All right, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion by Councilmember Mock,
I'll second.
and a second by Councilmember Sayer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, questions or comments from City Council?
You know, we've reviewed this at the work session. I've seen the MS4 permit just a few times in my life. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing beyond our work session, no, thank you.
Okay. I was gonna say, this is one of the things that, much like the budget, by the time it gets to us, we've seen it a few times. This one is just an annual one, so we've not seen it half a dozen times, but I think we have seen it half a dozen times in our careers here. So, thank you, Erin, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, up next is the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Hirschman,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Mock. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, 8.1, the Timber Creek 4 final plat. Did I read that Roman numeral correctly?
So I have a little story about that.
Oh, no.
So when I was putting together my staff report for Planning Commission, I had recently recovered from COVID and I was having hellacious brain fog. So instead of doing IV for 4, I just did 4 strikes.
Like the hash mark?
Yep, I sure did. Cindy Monroe set me straight. So I will not make that mistake again in my life. And I'm blaming it on COVID, not that we never use Roman numerals.
So if we look at the packet, we can find it.
Oh, Brenda kindly changed all of it for me.
Outstanding.
Alrighty, are we ready for final plat?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Like the mayor just mentioned, we're reviewing Phase 4 of Timber Creek final plat tonight. Some details and locations. So Timber Creek is the Lennar development that is just west of Carver Elementary. Looks really different every time you drive out there based on the type of construction that they're working on. So in total, 348 units, a product of Lennar, mix of single family and townhomes. With Phase 1, we also acquired property for the addition of Ironwood Park, which was recently completed, for their park dedication credit. So general location, west of Carver Elementary, south of Monroe Drive, and west of the Copper Hills neighborhood. What we're reviewing tonight is Phase 4 of their development. So typically, I like to think that final plat phases happen usually at about the 18-month mark when a developer has built enough lots that they feel like they need additional. This is our second review of a final plat for Timber Creek in 2023. So in January 2023, we reviewed Phase 3. Now it's October, and we're already reviewing Phase 4. So I would say construction is healthy and the market is healthy in Carver based on how quickly lots are being acquired and selling. Some details from the preliminary plat that have not changed throughout this process. The project is zoned under a PRD, or a planned residential development. The project open space is a really big component of this site. It's 40% left for open space. There's a trail system that we're working on right now. Again, in total, 348 homes, and hits that density of 3.1. 3 is required by the Met Council, so we're within those guidelines. The base zoning is R2, which is similar to Meridian Fields, Oak Tree, Copper Hills, so very similar to the neighborhoods that are surrounding the general area. With the Phase 4 submittal from Lennar, they gave us an updated phasing map, which is always really helpful. So blue on the screen is Phase 1, red is Phase 2, yellow is Phase 3, Phase 4 is in green, so Phase 4 is the 66 single-family lots we're considering tonight, and then the orange is Phase 5, so anticipating an additional phase coming up in the future. So general layout of the site. Phase 1 was 49 single-family, 74 townhome. Phase 2, 68 single-family. Phase 3, 40 single-family. Tonight, Phase 4 is 66, with the remaining 51 to be final platted in the future. So what is final plat? What does it look like? It's the last step in review by Planning Commission and City Council. There's generally little deviation from preliminary plat. That holds true here. There's nothing remarkable to report from the time preliminary plat was approved through final plat for Phase 4. In your packet is the developer's agreement, so staff and the developer have worked through details including city fees, construction expectations, warranties, timelines, what happens if things don't go the way that we hope that they will. That agreement is signed by the city and the developer. So again, tonight is a review of those 66 single-family lots for Phase 4, and then a motion entering into the developer's agreement with Lennar for Timber Creek 4. Planning Commission reviewed the project at their September 21st meeting and recommended approval to City Council on a 5-0 vote. Here's the technical plat on the screen right now. So this is the legal document that gets recorded at the county, shows the 66 lots. It's turned on its side, so don't look too closely, or you kind of lose where you are. Some additional details about the lots. So on the final plat, we see things like outlots, easements on the property, streets, etc. Additional second page. Again, really, it's a large project, 348 units. I think one of the more exciting parts of the project is the trail system that we're constructing. So everything yellow that's on the screen, the yellow line is the trail system. You'll see that there's a dotted line along the Timber Creek Ravine. So a couple weeks ago, Aaron Schmidt, Michael Jabs, me, a couple members from the Lennar team, and then their engineering team went out and walked that ravine to field fit where the trail location is going to be. So similar to the process we did with Hawthorne Ridge, this one was so much easier because it's so flat. So it was a lovely morning spent in the woods. They're going to start construction of that trail project with Phase 4. So as we continue to begin this process, they'll start trail work. A portion of it is asphalt, and then it goes to gravel. So similar to the Hawthorne Ridge system, it's really rustic. It's going to be a rustic trail system for everyone to enjoy, but it's going to be beautiful. And I bet right now it is gorgeous with fall colors. So tonight, again, Phase 4, Timber Creek final plat. You've seen this several times for several different requests for 66 single-family homes. And just some examples of the types of homes that are being constructed in Timber Creek. I will open it up for questions or discussion.
Questions, comments?
I don't have any issues with any of this. I just want to say a thank you, and I think this really makes it exciting for Carver to have us consider different trail options and not just say it always has to be a 10-foot asphalt trail, on the next to a highway. And so I'm really excited about the fact that we've been adding some of these little bit different amenities here and being willing to do that and bring those forward. So thank you for that and for the Planning Commission to get it here. But other than that, this looks great to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think some of these more rustic trails tend to be the more hidden trails. You talk to people about the Hawthorne Ridge Trail, and they're like, I walked this terrific trail. It was tough, but so something about it not being paved makes it a little bit more hidden. And I think once people discover it, they just love it that much more. Comments, questions?
I'm happy that the developer has the confidence to keep going. We're
Same.
worried about market conditions, and Carver is still a desirable place to build, so that gives me confidence.
Yeah, it was pointed that you pointed out 18-month leasing, and here we are 9 months later.
Right.
So, nothing.
No comments.
All right. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution 141-23, approving Timber Creek Phase 4 final plot.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Sarah and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thanks, Erin.
Do we also need to address?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
we sure
thank you.
do. We sure do. All right, moving right along.
I'll make a motion to approve and authorize execution of the developer's agreement for Timber Creek 4th Edition, subject to any changes deemed necessary by the city attorney.
I'll second.
Once again, we have a motion by Councilmember Sarah and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. All right, now, thank you, Erin. All right, item 8.2, the council vacancy appointment. Let's see, Dave, were you gonna kind of start us off here with the rules of the road?
Sure, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mayor and Council. So, of course, there's a vacancy on the City Council, and I know that last Wednesday night, I believe, the council held interviews. State law requires at this point that the council fill the vacancy by appointment. And I understand that after those interviews, there was no deliberation or discussion, but rather the council wrapped that meeting up, and then on tonight's agenda, of course, is that deliberation and that discussion. So the the process at this point is for the council to have those discussions, talk about the candidates to the extent you may desire to do that, and make an appointment. You can do it just by motion, so you'd have to have a motion seconded and then a vote taken. Just one point of clarification as well. The state statute that discusses council vacancies and this appointment process does provide that in the event that there is a motion on the table and there's a tie vote, since there's 4 of you, that's theoretically possible. That in the event that that does happen, then the mayor gets to make the appointment. So just something to think about as you handle your discussions tonight and go through that process. And I'm of course here to answer questions, but it's a fairly straightforward process, and at this point it's a council decision. So,
All right, thank you. Before we get into this, first of all, I want to thank everybody who applied. We had a pool of 5 candidates. And, you know, I think it's really important to point out that there are 3 of us sitting here, it's myself and everybody to my left, who have been through this before. We sat on that side of the desk, we did the interviews, and we weren't chosen, right?
Yes.
So, like, let's be honest, you have a 20% shot of getting here, but there are also, like, I say that not to be negative, but to say, like, the odds might not be in your favor, but there are other paths to doing this. And I really appreciate everybody for applying, putting yourself out there. This is the ickiest part of it, is the public deliberation. You know, we're lucky to have a really strong pool of candidates, which for me made this a hard decision. With that, I think the way that I would like to do this is kind of go through and talk about our top candidates, if that's okay, and then maybe we can whittle down from there, or someone would put out a motion. Thoughts? Does that seem fair?
I agree to start with a top 3.
Yep.
That makes sense.
All right.
That works.
Who wants to go first?
Go ahead, Eric. You want to?
All right, so, and we can get into the discussion for each candidate, that's fine, but my top 3 are going to be Reed, Glenn Henry, and Krista Goodell.
Is it Krista? Just clarifying.
Krista.
Krista Goodell.
Okay.
All right. Lori?
Yeah, if I had to rank my top 3, I would start with Kayla Pasco, Krista Godell, and then Reed Welch.
Christy?
I have Reed also. I have Glenn Henry. And I have a lot of time. I have tied. So I of my tie, one of them is here in the audience tonight, so Kayla Pasco.
Okay, I was going to say, I only have 2, so. Okay, my top 2 were Reed and Krista. So it looks like Reed is on everybody's list. Sorry, I'm just trying to, looks like Glenn was mentioned twice. It looks like Krista was mentioned 3 times. And it looks like Kayla was mentioned twice. If we were to vote just by numbers, it looks like it is between Krista, sorry, I'm just trying to, and Reed. Do we want to proceed with those 2 and continue discussing?
Like you said, this is the uncomfortable part because we appreciate every
Yes.
single person who has
Yeah.
applied to this, and this is difficult.
So I'll make a couple of comments then. I'll start with Krista. I think she had a strong interview. She stated her desire to do this to support the community with integrity and stewardship. She's a known quantity to the city. She's participated with Planning Commission. I think she said she had 15 years of experience. I think she would be an easy fill-in counsel. I thought Reed did an outstanding job in coming up with salient, relevant answers to the questions we posed. They were specific. It wasn't a question returned. It was a specific example of how we might do something in the city. So Reed would be my choice out of those two. I would vote Reed first.
This I can do easily, only because I had already kind of looked at my notes and I had Krista before Reed, and I had reasons why. And I think it's interesting that more than once between tonight's council meeting and work session, we've talked about being comfortable. Or like, this is tough. Like, we've had 5 great people who have contributed and just really would contribute a lot to our city. So that part's tough. But when some of my notes that I made in Krista's interview is she did not shy away from tough things. And also we had our work session today talking about water prices, you know, and it's another like tough thing. And so I think that is one of my reasons for ranking her higher, even though everyone brought, you know, and would be bringing great things. She mentioned about a price that we paid on a clock, and I was embarrassed. I didn't know. So that's on my thing to research. But I felt like she was really confident in bringing stuff up, not in a contentious way, but just to be like, okay, are we looking at it from all angles? What's the best for the city? What's the best for the residents? So that, and that she would be, because of her, maybe it's just personal interest, but also because of her planning commission, she would be ready to go right away. She would ramp up very fast, if not already ramped up. Let me just look, because I think I had other things too.
Lori, do you mind pulling your microphone towards you?
Oh, sorry. She'd probably be a lot better at turning her microphone on. Yeah, but it's been kind of a tone of that in this position we have to do things that aren't comfortable, such as narrowing things down, increasing rates for things, and just her approach on things that she brought up, and that as far as like the growth and how to meet the city's needs and the tax base. She had a good foundation of what we've been working on and what is going to be continue to be brought in front of us as a council to make decisions on. And I think she would balance well what's good for the city as well as good for the residents. So I would have her as my first choice candidate.
Christy?
Thank you. And so I was not live in studio here for the in studio. I feel like that's what we got today. We have so many people
Like it's
here.
the Hunger Games.
Yeah. I think you made a reference to that in your opening speech. But anyways, I was at home and I did listen to every single interview and I have notes from each of them. So I want to make sure that all the candidates know that I was present from home. I have to just preface a couple of things here. So when I'm looking at everyone who applied, I think everyone brought really interesting and some different characteristics, and I have somewhat found that I think some of our best decisions and best work that we've done is when we don't all agree, and I think that's great because it really brings out every single angle. And when we were interviewing, Reed really stood out to me. I appreciated his comments about balance, and because we all know that we balance all the time in our meetings, and that is how we do our business, is trying to find the right balance from what taxes might be to what wants and needs are. You know, we just got done talking about that earlier. I do like the leadership style, leading by example, and Reed, you're always prepared. You have done research. You come with questions and information anytime that you come into the council chambers, and I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that you are here in person tonight, and that if you couldn't be here in person, we also have this online. People who had applied who could be here certainly could have tuned in, and I think if you're going to apply for a council position, knowing that tonight is the night that you are going to possibly be chosen, I think attendance is very important. So Reed, I want to thank you for being in the audience tonight. I enjoyed a few other things that you said, talking about continued growth and diversifying our our housing base. And I wrote one thing down. It says, if people can't afford to live in Carver, what do we do? And you talked about how can we simplify the zoning ordinance and allowing development of smaller homes and the levy, and we're not getting a do-over. You said we're not getting a do-over, so we've got one chance here to make it right the first time. So Krista also brought very, very good things in her interview and a background and a history, obviously, both on the Planning Commission. I do just feel that Reed is my choice for this evening.
All right, and I too am going to say that Reed is my number one choice. I want to say how hard of a decision this truly was. I went through and I rewatched the videos twice. When we were here last Wednesday, I was talking to Vicki and was like, this is going to be recorded, right? This is going to be recorded. Because part of it was trying to jot down as many notes as you can, but I just really wanted to see it again. I think, Reed, we had the questions posted online, and that was a little bit of the test, my words, when we were working on them in the work session. But I think also part of it was that you were able to kind of right on the fly answer the questions, and you knew your stuff. I've watched county commission meetings, the videos that they broadcast live, and I remember specifically I was interested in the redistricting one, and Reed was there in the audience. He's involved in a number of areas, which, if you're appointed, you might have to get rid of the county parks thing. That's something for our lawyer to figure out. But, I think being able to have that wealth of knowledge, that you didn't need preparation, and you knew the strategic plan, and you knew the comprehensive plan. Reed's also been pressure tested. He was the chair of the Planning Commission during the Brookview meeting, which was really not a fun meeting. That was in the height of COVID. And it was a meeting that I was watching virtually and kind of cringing. I also think, because truly for me, it was very, very close between Reed and Krista. I will argue that I think the Planning Commission and a lot of us, again, have kind of come that
the feeder program.
That's the farm team, right? Look at me using a sports analogy.
I was not part of that farm team,
right? But I think that's the farm team. That's the feeder program, and I think that gives you experience being in tough meetings, knowing what a preliminary plat is, knowing Robert's Rules of Order and that kind of thing. So I think that both Reed and Krista had that going for them. But I think, with Reed, another thing that I was kind of looking at is if you look at where we all live throughout the community, Reed has a little bit of geographic diversity, and that he kind of represents that top portion of or the northernmost portion of our community where I'm just trying to think of even like the Planning Commission. We don't have, save for Reed, really great representation. Mm-hmm. So definitely, not the deciding factor, but a plus that I have down with that. So with that, I will make a motion to appoint Reed Welch for this upcoming term through the end of 2024 to City Council.
I will second that.
Got a motion by Mayor Johnson and a second by Councilmember Pershman. Any further discussion?
Kayla, I want to say thank you. Thank you for applying. Thank you for putting the time in. Thank you for being here. We really appreciate that and your interest. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Glenn. Yes. Thank you, Krista. Truly, we know how it feels to be on that side of the dais because we have all been a no vote in the past.
Second time, actually.
So, All right, so with that, we have a motion
You need votes.
and a second? Yes.
Oh. I thought you second. Anyways, I thought the second was already done. Yeah. The
A
second.
motion and a second, that was
Yeah.
the discussion.
No discussion from me.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Great, motion passes unanimously. Welcome, Reed.
Thank you.
Welcome, Reed.
All right, are we good? Is there anything else we need to do?
Yes, it's my understanding that the appointee will take the oath, I believe, at the meeting on the 16th. So he
Correct.
can do that at the beginning of the meeting, and then he'll be qualified to serve that night.
Sure. And at the beginning, probably prior to the work session.
That would be fine. Frankly, he could even do it before then with staff at City Hall if he wanted to start acting. I mean, as you all know, as council members, your job doesn't necessarily stay within the confines of council chambers at meetings, but I think the plan is, yes, that evening at the beginning of the work session.
Okay,
So,
that's
yeah.
great. Okay, let's see, communications. Aaron, do you have any?
I have one item, if that's okay.
Okay, yep.
So we have been working with Great River Greening on the grant project for Creekside Park. So if you'll recall, Great River Greening, we got about $360,000 from the Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund and the Outdoor Heritage Fund for stream stabilization. So we held a pre-construction meeting last week with Sunram Construction. That's a group that will be doing the creek work. So I just wanted to make note that in the next couple of weeks, there are going to be trees that are tagged in this area along Carver Creek in the park area that will be removed. So tree removal, always a bummer. This is one of the times that I can say they're being used for good. So the technique that they use, it's called tow wood installation. So they were able to go on site, figure out the number of trees that they needed to complete the stream stabilization. They remove that and they reinstall them along the creek. So it's called a root wad. So this is from the DNR website. You'll see this is the tow wood section. So you can see the debris that they add to the creek bank. And then the root wad that stays in the creek to allow for some natural habitat, but it also strengthens the creek bed. So trees will be removed from the site, put directly into the creek bed. So tree removal, scary, terrible, we hate it. But in this situation, it's going for the greater good of the erosion for the creek. So Sunram is slated to start their construction mid-October, and it will be until mid-November. Once we're through that contract, we will take a look at budget numbers, and then we can talk about the volunteer planting event that can happen in Creekside Park. So about 35 trees will go. They'll be reestablished in the creek, and then we'll also do some tree planting throughout the park once this project is completed. So
This is like dorkily fascinating. Can we do social media posts?
Yes,
to
that was my plan.
anticipate
Yep.
the trees are coming down, what's
yes,
going on?
Can
absolutely.
we just say we're repatriating the trees?
I believe it's called a tow wood sod mat, but
Yep.
sure.
So just wanted to give you a heads up. The trees are slated to be marked a couple days before the contractor gets out there. So if anyone's asking about why there's ribbons on the trees, it's related to the erosion
Okay.
project.
You showed us which area the trees are gonna come down in. Do you know the area where this work is gonna be done, where they're gonna be shoring up the?
Sure. So they do a significant amount of work near Jonathan Carver Parkway and then along this big ridge here.
Okay. Cool. All right, any other questions for Aaron?
Questions?
Right, why don't we start on this end for council updates? Christie?
I have none, thank you.
Laura made it easy for you.
I don't have any.
Eric?
I do.
Oh, thank
So I
goodness.
was at the Southwest Transit meeting the other night, and there was a lot of discussion around, and we've talked about this before, microtransportation, Southwest Prime, and I think we would all find that the costs are shockingly high internally to Southwest Transit, and that is translated into higher costs for us. And we had some heartache about budgeting for next year around this. I'll be attending a full workday session Saturday in November to drill down into the details. Southwest is looking at maybe co-location with schools for depots for Prime. But it's certainly going to be a much larger part of their portfolio and how they move people around. They're looking at adding some additional services that actually might help us since we took away that ring that gave people access to the airport. They're looking at adding fixed transportation to the airport as a solution there, and we might be able to get people to, or if they're able to catch that at the next closest station, utilizing Prime for that. So there's more to come, but this is going to directly impact us, and if we have some questions we want to bring to that the meeting in November, direct those towards me, and I'll represent Carver.
All right, thank you. Let's see, just a few updates from me. I mentioned before that I'm on the League of Minnesota Cities Board. We had a board retreat at Madden's in Nisswa. The president of the board always gets to host, so it's Jenny Max, who's the city manager for Nisswa, so that's why it was up in the Brainerd Lakes area. During that, we had so it kind of was focusing on the two different areas that the League of Minnesota is going to be. They have a brand new executive director who started in May, who is not brand new to the organization, but is brand new to his role, Luke Fisher. The two areas of focus are a resource of choice and then a employer of choice. And on the last day, Friday morning, they had a panel discussion with examples of folks who were just giving proof points and talking about their workplaces and what employees were looking for and what they were doing to become a workplace of choice. And the league asked Brent to come up. And so of the three people, Carver was spotlighted on that, which was a really prideful moment of what we're doing in terms of just for your day and the summer hours that we had and the ability to work from home, and that didn't stop with the end of COVID restrictions. So really cool. And for a lot of the folks on the board, Brent used to be on the League of Minnesota Cities board, so he knows a lot of the folks with the league. But really cool for some of the newer people who might not be able to point out Carver on the map, but know that we're doing really good things when it comes to trying to be a workplace of choice. So that was a really proud moment for me, and fun to see and hear what Brent had to say. Let's see. Last week we gave away the HPC award. It went to the Getaway Motor Cafe at 120 Broadway, the Royces. So all three Royces, Nate, Tara, and Johnny were there, and Johnny is adorable, but we also got to tour, check out the Airbnb upstairs, and then kind of what will, in the future, be a speakeasy in the basement. So very cool. We had the Parks Advisory Group last Tuesday night, the same night as the HPC Award. That is a really good group. We had it here. This was kind of our work session, if you will, and really bringing those folks on board and talking about the park dedication and what that means, and our plan to start putting money away for the park maintenance fund, and talking about the parks master plan, so that those folks can have a better idea. And I think it's an awful lot in an hour and a half, 2-hour session. We also had Erin with the City of Chaska, was that her name?
Erin Link.
With the City of Chaska to talk about the recreational services agreement. So that group is off to a really great start. They're asking really great questions, and I think it's going to be good. So really cool to see how kind of the Parks Commission has kind of evolved into that. So I'm excited about that. Last Wednesday, I think Eric did it too, but we did BizTown interviews at Carver Elementary. That's a unit for 5th graders where they get to go on an actual field trip to BizTown, where it's a regular town. They have a mayor, they have a city attorney, they have a bank, they have an airline, they have a TV station or a radio station, and all these kids are interviewing for their roles. So it's pretty cool to see a 5th grader come up and lock eyes with you and throw out their right hand and shake your hand and then answer questions about why would you be a good mayor? What skills do you have that would make you a good city attorney? So really cool to be interviewed with those, have the opportunity to interview those kids. Minnesota Mayors Association, I told you that we have the meetups across the state. We did a meetup last week at New Hope, which was really cool to see their new city hall that was built the same year this was built. It's a city hall and police station and just really cool to see what they have and kind of the work that they're doing, especially from their police station side, to become an employer of choice. Let's see, last Friday I volunteered at the Carver Fire Relief Association's golf tournament. It started out a little wet, if you remember. It rained and rained and rained last Friday morning. So they didn't allow carts on Dahlgreen, which if you know the topography of Dahlgreen, it's wicked. So like at the end of the day, I was on the 10th hole, 11th hole, and our game was the marshmallow game, longest drive with a marshmallow, which those marshmallows go a little bit further than I ever anticipated. So that was fun, but you could just tell at the end of the day, the participants were just whooped after carrying their clubs or walking 18 holes. So thanks to everybody who participated in that. And then last thing that I have is tomorrow night is the fire department's open house. If you don't know what you are doing for dinner, you now know. Hot dogs, chili. I think Qdoba is always there with a little bowl of, kind of a little burrito bowl. Fire truck rides, a simulation of what happens when you don't close your door to your bedroom when you go to bed at night and if there's a fire. And then also public services open house. In past years, it'll be, it's been writing your name on the plow truck, talking to folks. We're going to be doing some, letting folks know about the County Road 40 master plan, and cake is always on that side of the building. So definitely recommend you'll go. Always a good time. So I think that's it for all my updates. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Mock and a second by Councilmember Sayer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Good evening.